Today on the Anime Zone, a review of Sword Art Online, an anime about a group of players trapped in a virtual reality MMORPG trying to escape. It has romance, it has adventure, it has mystery, but best of all, it has the epic
Dragons! Fuck my life!
The world of MMORPGs confuse me. I've never properly got into them personally, but as an outsider looking in, it just seems like a massive time sponge in which you'll probably play as some ugly motherfucking mutant man dwarf if you're a male, or some sex god elf complete with big tits if you want to pretend you're a female, running around in a virtual world full of other big tits, spending days on end raising an arbitrary number that represents your strength, which probably rises in negative correlation to your sex life. But what the hell do I know? Nevertheless, the genre has gained massive popularity in both the East and West that can only be topped worldwide the day someone decides to make Gears of Halo Modern Black Ops 7 featuring Nazi zombies that dance Gangnam Style. So it should come to no surprise to anyone that the anime that has gained most popularity and of course controversy in 2012 is the RPG-based anime Sword Art Online. The story starts off introducing the newest MMORPG to hit the market, Sword Art Online, a game so great that geeks worldwide have apparently been tossing themselves silly in glee and anticipation, while the rest of the world is probably out there having sex. On its launch day, everything seems to be going swimmingly for everyone. The world looks gorgeous and the gameplay is every bit as great as it's hyped up to be. That is until the game's creator, Kayaba Akihiko, gathers all players in one place to reveal a catch. Firstly, all players' avatars are changed to look like their real-world bodies. Good-looking men become fat geeks, good-looking ladies become fat geeks become fat geeks, and underage girls become FBI agents. Secondly, all players are now trapped in the game with no way out until they complete it. Everyone must live, breathe, and play the world of Sword Art Online until someone beats all 100 floors of it. And here's the stinger. If you die in the game, it will be the end of your life. Online. Or to put it in words that everyone will understand, people die if they are killed! The story is told through the eyes of our main protagonist Kirito, one of the original beta testers in the game who, in real life, is a super hacker that's been obsessed with spending every waking hour trapped inside playing video games ever since a young age, aka, he's a fucking loser. At least he should be if he didn't attract every female within a 10-mile in-game radius. Yes, it's pretty much established that the female players are somewhat rare in the game, and yet the main character seems like a bona fide chick magnet, with a variety of different girls, all in different shapes and boob sizes, lining up so he can have a pick of which stereotype he wants. Other important characters include Asuna, the main female lead introduced as a mysterious, badass player that turns out to be a generic tsundere who is completely useless without her boyfriend. Sugaha, who is introduced later on and gets plenty of development, by which I mean she has massive breasts, who is completely useless without her boyfriend. And the rest of the harem bait, who only gets about one episode of screen time anyway, but it's enough to establish that they're completely useless without their fucking boyfriend. But I'll touch on that subject later. Now, with my previous reaction videos, there might be some confusion as to what I actually thought about the show, so I'll just lay that to rest right now. Did I think Sword Art Online was good? Kinda. There are some things that the show does really well, and one of them is most certainly the action. If A1 Pictures has proved something to me after watching this and Birdie the Mighty Decode, is that they know how to do that action and they know how to do it absolutely gorgeously. The highlights in SAO is undoubtedly the action scenes, and this especially shines during every single boss battle we see. The boss battles were a glorious spectacle that never failed to drop my jaw right down to the floor, and gave me a nostalgic thrill of the hours spent fighting my own boss battles as a kid playing some grand video game. Combine this with a soundtrack made by Yuki Kadra, who, if you can't remember, did the soundtrack to Fate Zero, and you'll find yourself having eyes and eargasms during the fantastically done high points of the show, even if the choir sounds like they're singing about gaming snap. Yes, the action and music are definitely the highlights of the show, in addition to the beautiful art that really made the stunning in-game settings stand out, and made you feel like you wanted to be a part of this game. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said about the story and characters, which have enough individual problems to fill up a Britannica Encyclopedia set. Though, to be honest, just about every problem I have can be summed up in basically one line. It's shit! Joking. In all seriousness, the show takes itself way too seriously. So much so that I'm pretty sure it ripped off some iconic scenes from End of Evangelion and Berserk, because apparently it's just as serious as those other two shows. Yes, the biggest feeling I got from the series was that it was trying to set itself up as an epic action-adventure tale set in a vast, unexplored online virtual world, when it just really felt like a group of twats pissing about in a video game. The characters themselves aren't nearly as developed as they pretend to be, since the amount of characterization I got after 25 5 episodes of following Kirito is that he's some awesome badass because he wears black clothes and is really good at video games, spends most of his time trying to be the lone anti-hero, and picks up chicks along the way like they're fucking Pokemon. He's the ultimate wish fulfillment character since he's stupidly overpowered for unexplained reasons, and anything remotely vagina-shaped becomes completely reliant on him. Perfectly encapsulated in this scene here when he takes on 7 full-grown motherfuckers to protect what looks like a 5-year-old and becomes the first person ever to win a fight by apparently standing people into submission. Asuna's character, for all the potential she showed in her badass introduction, just turns out to be a generic tsundere that doesn't develop any deeper than that. Her romance with Kirito feels so forced and generic, it feels like it was written by a teenager who was just guessing at how romances work. Guy meets girl, they kinda know each other, spend some time together, she acts like she doesn't like him. Bullshit! She cooks for him, suddenly she likes him, they spend a few more days together, and then they just decide to get married. What? The whole thing was just handled so lazily and developed at a ridiculously unnatural pace, leaving Asuna as nothing more than just a plot device by the end. As for the story, well, the biggest draw for the show is of course the great way the series set up its premise. The first 3 episodes of the show were great, setting up the intriguing premise perfectly that hinted at an epic quest to clear the game that would take a hell of a lot of work, sacrifice, and hardship that could possibly lead to some higher purpose. It instantly drew you in and made you want to see more of this world and how things would develop. Unfortunately from there, it never really built on a tone and potential set in early episodes, by instead deciding to focus on a soiree of side stories that hardly ever focused on the main goal, while constantly having time skips as if half the show is set in a hyperbolic time chamber. One moment it was an action adventure and the next minute it was CSI fucking Warcraft. It didn't have any focus, which is a shame because if the plot did decide to go in the direction of the early episodes, it could have been a great anime. Even with these problems though, the first half was still an enjoyable look into a real life gaming environment, and it was very interesting to see the psychological implications of actually creating a society in a virtual world. Each episode managed to build on a new aspect of the game, and just seeing how core game mechanics was integrated into our daily lives led to a very intriguing setting that never failed to grab my interest. However, the shoddy writing becomes completely evident in the second half of the show when it takes a nosedive so spectacular it was Olympic medal worthy. Without spoiling too much, the great action is still there, but the story takes a turn which makes it lose all sense of purpose, while ironically managing to make you feel like you're watching a video game played by some pretentious idiots taking it 10,000 times too seriously. All feeling of urgency is lost, and it's hard to feel for characters when the entire story arc is driven by a romance that was a dribbling mess in the first place. A little sister character is introduced, who is not really a sister, wink wink, along with a new villain who seems about as threatening as a camp butterfly, probably because that's exactly what he looks like, not helped by the fact that he's a middle-aged man who just happens to scream like a 15-year-old girl. The writing also takes a back seat as there are multiple moments where the show disregards its own in-game rules in favour of Deus Machina writing to either advance the plot or make Kirito look like a badass, leading to some arsepool so big it probably left the show with an anus the size of the Grand Canyon. The show has the exact opposite problem that High School of the Dead had by trying to be something that it was not, and if it wasn't taking itself too seriously, I probably would be a lot less harsh on it because there is a lot of fun to be had here. Despite all of this though, it has still become by far the most popular anime of 2012. It's no surprise how there was such a huge popularity spike, since I'm pretty sure becoming the most badass character stuck in the ultimate video game with hordes of females chasing after you is the secret wish of every gamer out there. But bad writing and shoddy characters aside, the show was definitely entertaining, particularly if you're a gamer. There's a certain sense of satisfaction in seeing all these gaming terms being thrown around and raising the stakes up to a game that looks genuinely fun to play. Cause as many criticisms as I had, I was never once bored while watching the show, even if part of the entertainment was seeing the amount of stupid being radiated in later episodes. The action at its best was able to make me forget about the story and characters for a brief period. The setting makes it the perfect gateway anime for newbies, and they obviously know their target audience well enough to execute this premise. So much so that I would say that if you like video games, especially if you like MMORPGs, you will probably like this in one way or another. Overall, Sword Art Online is a solid show that has an interesting premise with great animation and music, but really fails when it comes to the characters and plot. At the very least, it's an entertaining watch and does well to explore the concept of actually living in a high stakes game, but takes itself far too seriously, and if you want any kind of enjoyment from this anime, it's probably best to watch it without thinking too much. It's not as good as the fanboys praise it to be, but it's not as bad as the haters claim it to be either. Currently, Sword Art Online is yet to have a DVD or Blu-ray release, but is available for streaming on Crunchyroll. You can also go to crunchyroll.com/theanimezone for a free fortnight of premium membership. And if there's one thing gamers should take from this series, is that you shouldn't take your gaming life too seriously. All it ever boils down to is a bunch of numbers, and your online life doesn't have to be ruled by some arbitrary numbers that have no real meaning. On a topic, how about subscribing to me so I can reach 60,000 subs?
Kirito may bang all the chicks, but Kirito, no, who no leader to bow. Slap me upside the head and call me Gary Stew!